Every year, Google releases a Nexus device in partnership with different manufacturers, from the original partner HTC with the Nexus 1 in 2010 to last year's model, the Nexus 6, made by Motorola. Now, during these releases, Google has either done one of two things with their Nexus devices. Either they've made a top-of-the-line Android device running their latest software as a technical showcase to present Android in the best light they can and inspire their manufacturing partners to push the limits of what Android is for, or they've created a budget-friendly device aimed at putting Android in the hands of more users that might not be able to afford the latest and greatest features with their also much higher price tags. So, this year, when Google announced the latest Nexus device, it came with an interesting twist. They essentially did both. They ended up releasing a flagship model, the Nexus 6P, and a lower-end model, the Nexus 5X. For my review of the Nexus 5X, click the link below, but in this video, let's discuss how they did with their top-of-the-line Nexus, the Nexus 6P. The P in Nexus 6P stands for premium, apparently. And I have to admit, it definitely feels ahead in that department compared to the older Nexus devices, thanks in no small part to the all-metal body. Huawei, the manufacturer for this Nexus model, has clad the device in aluminum, which may not be the strongest of metals, as demonstrated by my friend Zach over at Jerry Rig Everything. Check out the video below for what I mean by that. But trying to purposely bend the device in half aside, it does lend a much needed premium feel, at least, to the Nexus 6P. The body isn't the only thing that's been premiumed. The screen is also one of the nicest to ever show up on a Nexus handset. With a seriously bright 2.5K resolution, it's up there with the top tier of smartphone screens, period. Add to that the two front-facing stereo speakers that are properly loud. I mean, I put them up against a Bluetooth speaker I had, and while on the higher end they got a bit more tinny sounding than the actual speaker, it definitely kept up in terms of volume. So it's a pretty decent option for sharing videos with those around you without, say, having to cup the bottom of the phone and yelling at everybody to shut up. The phone also follows suit with the latest flagship devices and incorporates a fingerprint scanner, albeit in a more unusual back of the device location. But while the back of the device might seem a bit odd, I actually ended up getting used to it pretty quickly. So much so that I, just like MKBHD, got used to taking the phone out of my pocket in such a way that my finger was already on the scanner and it was unlocked by the time it got out of my pocket. Which brings me to another point about the fingerprint scanner. It's remarkably fast. Out of curiosity, I even put it up against the iPhone 6's scanner, and it's even noticeably faster than that. The only downside is when it's actually laying on a table face up, there's no way obviously to get to the fingerprint. So you have to manually put in your code, or you're forced to pick up the device in order to unlock it. Besides the hardware, the software is another major benefit of all Nexus devices, and this one isn't excluded in that. With a Nexus phone, you get unadulterated and unbloated Android, so that means no carrier fluff added on top, and because of that, instant updates from Google. Unlike the carriers that add a UI to their Android releases, there is no development that needs to be done to get the UI to work on the new version of Android whenever it gets released. The prime reason why it takes manufacturers so damn long to update their devices. Another seemingly small feature that I find incredibly useful is the double tapping of the power button to bring up the camera, as opposed to the Motorola's shaking of the phone to do it, which was very handy. This does make up for that, and I find it very useful when trying to take quick shots with the camera. With that said, that brings us to the camera. I was excited when I heard that Google announced a new Nexus 6P and its camera capabilities, with a 12.3 megapixel camera that has larger pixels that are 1.55 microns in size that allow better low light photography. Essentially, the idea is that instead of having a lot of pixels like a 15 megapixel camera, they only have 12 megapixels, but each one is a little bit larger so it can let in more light, giving it better quality in low light settings. I even managed to take some pics in a restaurant without the flash, and just tapping the auto enhance in the Photos app that's on the phone brought them to a pretty decent quality, as you can see here. With all this, I'm sure you're thinking, okay, this has to be the best phone out there. What could possibly be wrong with it? Now, while it is a great phone, there are a few things to note in the cons column. For example, this is more of a subjective thing, but the styling isn't amazing. It says premium with the materials, but not as much with the overall design. I mean, giant Nexus words on the back just kind of scream, we need to better brand the Nexus name, so let's make it huge on the back of phones so that people ask every time they look at it. But really, it has no need to be there and could have been a small Nexus icon, the little X thing, and that would have been kind of a little more, I don't know, tasteful. But again, subjective. Speaking of large, the phone itself would never be described as compact. Now, I personally like larger phones, so it doesn't bother me, but I'm sure the sheer size of it isn't for everyone in the same way that people think the iPhone 6 Plus is essentially a new mini iPad. And since I'm a victim to the current design trends myself, the phone does cause an issue when sitting down in my skinny jeans. And finally, there's the battery life. It's great compared to most phones on the market, actually, which is nice, but it still doesn't last me an entire day without having to plug it in at some point. Thankfully though, when I do find an outlet that I need to commandeer, there is quick charging. So I only need to charge it for 20 minutes or so before I can move on to the next situation. Phone is also unlocked, and it works for pretty much every carrier in the world, including the CDMA ones here in the States like Verizon and Sprint. So there's an added benefit of the fact that you can just pop in any SIM card you want and be ready to go. Besides all of the carriers that you can use it on, the phone is also capable of using Google's own carrier and cell phone service called Google Fi. It's actually a pretty neat concept, although I haven't had a chance to check out its coverage and speed and all that fun stuff, but pricing wise, it's kind of cool. But I'll be doing a video on Google Fi, how it works and everything else shortly, so stay tuned for that. Overall, though, it's hard to say a lot of bad things about this phone, and since I myself am not a huge fan of the custom UIs that manufacturers put on their Android devices, it tends to just slow things down and generally annoy the crap out of me, regardless of the minor features that it adds. The Nexus devices give me a big thing that I want in the first place: less software gumming up the premium hardware. Not only that, but it does all of this for a couple $100 less than the equivalent flagship device from another manufacturer. If you don't mind the design, size, etc., you're looking at other flagship Android devices and perhaps you're more of the function over style type of person, then you should definitely add the 6P to your list of options, as it's hard to find a phone that checks as many boxes as the Nexus 6P. And there you go. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and if you did, please thumbs up it or share it. It is greatly appreciated. And if you want more videos like this, please subscribe to the YouTube channel or follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, etc. at dkogan or at theunlocker. As always, thanks for watching.